Suking Prose moving when I first arrived in Shanghai. Because I couldn't afford a bungalow apartment, I had to live in a front floor room somewhere near North Sichuan Road. The second landlord was a Cantonese and loved cleanliness. Although our room was narrow, it was still very clean. Brand new white paint, but also elegant. Fortunately, we didn't bring anything bulky. Apart from 2 wire beds, a writing desk, and 2 single-back chairs, there were only a few shelves of old books in the room. The suitcase was hidden under the bed. My husband studies in a university at night and takes to middle school classes during the day. He travels around a lot and rarely lives at home. But I have no friends in Shanghai, except for occasionally browsing in bookstores on Sima Road. Outside of magazines and illustrations, I never leave the house on weekdays. I read here, walk here, sit and lie down here. Therefore, this small room is more familiar to me than it is to the second landlord. I know the walls, every little black spot. These are what I counted over and over again when I was bored. But after half a month, I felt that there was no need to do such stupid things anymore, because I had come up with a very interesting pastime, which was to do a one-man show. Finally, I pulled out a book on the old bookshelf, The Bestonnect Plays. The first article is The Rhizony of the Moon by Lady Gregory. So after I read the full text, I used several voices to represent several characters and talk to myself. After speaking, I became the director and drama critic myself, and repeated consider the tone of each sentence. More than a month passed like this, until I had memorized 5 or 6 scripts by heart, when I suddenly contracted a serious cold. Whenever I was lying alone in bed, I heard people downstairs and next door talking and laughing in Cantonese. I couldn't help but feel homesick as a wanderer, and felt that it was extremely desolate to be among strange strangers. Later, whenever I heard the sound of clogs on the stairs, I would cover my head tightly with the quilt. After this incident, we moved to another nearby alley. Almost 67 out of 10 residents there were from Ningbo. As long as you listen quietly during the day, the vendors going by were shouting, "Buy Ningbo radish," or "Ningbo oyster," etc. There were sounds of all around, so I was overjoyed and stopped playing one-legged games. But less than a week later, trouble came again. It turned out that the second landlord here was a lonely old woman, and living with her were her mother-in-law, goddaughter and son-in-law, and many goddaughters and grandchildren. When I first came here, the adults all said a simple hello to me when they saw me, and the children only glanced sideways and then whispered to each other. But within a few days, because I was happy to participate in a shuttlecock competition in their team, I became familiar with them. Yes, everyone calls me Auntie upstairs when they see me, and I am happy to deal with them. Later, they simply came to my room in groups and asked me to teach them singing and dancing. I agreed and gave them some biscuits and candies, and everyone laughed and joked for a while. Since then, they have become regular guests in our room. Sometimes when I close the door and want to write some letters or read a book, they always knock on the door so loudly that I have to put away the letter paper and play with them again. During half a month, I couldn't do anything. When my husband came back, he saw that everything in the room was in a mess, with paper scraps and shells everywhere. But a large group of children still dragged me and told me to play and sing again. Although he didn't say what, but I know he must be very disgusted. Just because this is my only way to entertain myself at home all day long, so I can't bear to say it. At the same time, I felt very embarrassed. Seeing how these children like to get close to me, I couldn't bear to reject them and expel them immediately. Besides, how happy I am to be with them. It wasn't until one night when they accidentally broke the vase. The vase was a gift from a friend to celebrate our wedding, that I felt I had to bear with them. After thinking about it dozens of times, I had to be tactful. Tell them what you can. Although I like to play with them very much, my husband is a clean person. I hope that they will just wait for me downstairs in the future, and I will come downstairs to find them when I am free. We want to come to you. We want to come to your room. It's interesting here. Everyone shouted in confusion. My repeated attempts to persuade him failed, but I felt that I couldn't displease my husband anymore. So the next morning I told their grandmother this in a low voice, but she immediately replied to me with a livid face as if she had been insulted. Okay, I won't let them come to your door to beg for food in the future. It's you yourself. I happily asked them to play and gave them sweets to eat. As a grandmother, I am poor myself. I will never teach my grandson to beg others to die with something stuffed in their throats. The more I listened to her talk, the angrier she became. So I stopped making any further statements. I didn't ask them, but they wanted to come up on their own. I just forced a smile and rushed upstairs. I could only hear the grandmother still nagging. We are the second landlord ourselves. We have a living room and a patio. What's not fun about it? It would be strange for a wealthy person to come to your place to live in a snail shell and live in a bungalow. Since no one answered, she gradually felt unmotivated and her voice dropped. Grandma, I want to buy spice-dried tofu. A sea shouted in from outside. What else do you want? Are you still not full after 3 prison meals a day? You have to keep the biscuits for yourself, and you are not allowed to beg like a beggar again. The grandmother found someone, and she got angry again. A 7-year-old person is still a little ignorant. He spends all his time on his own money and wants to stand on someone else's tortoise door. Do you also want to have sex with her? Qing closed the cell door during the day, and the two of them didn't want anyone to come in. How can a Gengta couple be so shameless, as I used to do when your grandpa was here? See, where do you want to go? Upstairs again? And I will beat you to death immediately. Dog fate. Don't you want to go to Andy's house upstairs? I want to, Assie's voice said. What kind of aunt is she? She wants you to call her so kindly? I want to have a quiet sex with my concubine. There is no need for little brats like you to go to sex. Her words became more and more obscene, and I felt angry, annoyed and unhappy to continue listening. I just picked up a novel and read it myself. Ever since I offended her that day, my mother-in-law, daughter-in-law, and my daughter turned around and pretended not to see me when they saw me, and also ordered their maids not to do anything for me anymore. It turned out that the meal where we lived was served in a small restaurant. She also made an agreement with her maid that for a price of $2 a month, she would empty the toilet, make boiling water for us every day, and bring letters from the postman and newspapers from the newspaper distributor upstairs. This agreement was originally the second landlord agreed, because they also agreed with the maid that from now on they would be paid $1 less per month. But now, in order to go against me, they are willing to spend an extra $1, which makes me very embarrassed. In addition, if our letters were deliberately thrown away or wet, or if their son-in-law or children said hello to me and caused a quarrel, I could no longer live in it. So I decided to leave it 10 days before the end of January. On that day, November 18th in the lunar calendar, I made up a reason and told them politely that I wanted to move. The livid face was a little more fierce than before. Is it okay to move in December? You are also educated and sensible. Shanghai rules never allow moving in December. In the first month, if you don't want to live in the house, you will have to pay for 3 months of vacancy. What? I couldn't help but get angry after hearing her tough tone. You didn't show me any charter when I came in, and you said that it's not easy to move in the first month of November. Besides, it's not October now. February. I don't owe you any rent. Shanghai's rules are like this. Your term expires on November 28th. Isn't it already December? No matter what. Her eyes became more fierce. We have to move anyway. I ran straight upstairs angrily, so she still acted her best and ran to the kitchen, got alone to curse for a while. They're still called scholars. I saw that they read up to their buttocks. Unlucky this year. People don't come to the door and ghosts come to the door. The slut who lived in the pavilion before was not a good person. He went up and downstairs without turning off the lights. Okay, get out of here. I'm going to pay for the vacant room. Who cares about you stinking tenants? The landlord is not good. Let's move. Let's see if you are lucky enough to live in a bungalow. After scolding for a while, he went in. The next day, the rent notice came out, and we hurriedly looked for a house. Everyone stayed out of the way, and we lived like enemies for a few more days. This time we were frightened. We looked in one place in the east, fearing that the landlord was smoking opium, and in another in the west. We were also afraid that the landlady would be abusive. Until the 26th, we couldn't bear it anymore, so we decided to accept the invitation of one of his friends and go to his house. How long we can stay in the wing upstairs temporarily will be discussed after the new year. That morning, I sorted out my things, had lunch, and called for rickshaws to take them there with my suitcases and quilts wrapped first. Are you moving today? When I took off my quilt for the second time, 3 gangster-like men suddenly blocked the back door and asked. I couldn't help being surprised. So I had to bite the bullet and answer. Yes. What's more, you ask me. The second landlord said we can't move. The idiot seemed to want to use force against me. We don't owe rent money. So what right does the second landlord have to interfere with my move? Besides, who are you from his family to speak for them? I said it like a strong person and called the coachman hurriedly, come and take it. But the 2 coachmen stood outside like chickens, daring not to move. You can't move today under any circumstances. Can you still move in December? No matter which second landlord you meet, they will never agree to it. The man in the cap with a sinister face also spoke. Why would the second landlord post the rent notice if he didn't agree? I pointed at the rent notice at the door and asked him. At this time, he heard the arguing upstairs and came down. Seeing that it was a gangster, he hurriedly went out to report to a policeman. When the policeman saw the gangster, he begged them carefully. This gentleman has to move because of important matters. Don't make it difficult, brothers. Besides, people do have freedom of movement. Freedom? The second landlord also came out. If you die, your wife will be free to steal. Will she also be free to move house? The policeman also got angry and yelled back. My wife doesn't know how to steal. You are the one raising an orphan by yourself. After hearing this, the second landlord immediately roared, rushed towards the policeman, and yelled with a red face. You said that I support the elderly alone. Show me the evidence. Catch the cheater. I'm over 50 years old and I'm still here. Raising an orphan? Stealing your ancestors? The policeman saw that there was no way and hurriedly scurried off alone. She said to us again, go and call some more policemen, and I'll see you. Chiang Kai-shek is not afraid either. The pimped gangster was cheering from the side again, patting his chest and saying, who dares to talk to me? Lee XX. There is no such logic in the world. I have to pay for 4 months' empty house. At that time, the rickshaw driver also pulled up the rickshaw and went to find another customer. Seeing that there was nothing we could do, we had to say, I'll argue with you later. We still took the quilt upstairs and decided to go looking for his friend Zhu Zhen, because Zhu had a brother working in the prison. So he locked the door and hurried out, and heard them laughing. Look at what kind of reinforcements they asked for. No powerful person will come here. Come and stay. When we arrived at Zhu's house, the friend had just gone shopping with his wife. When he asked the maid, he didn't know when she would be back, so he had to leave a business card and leave, and then went to find his cousin. The uncle tried his best to persuade us not to just to keep your spirits up. Just spend a few dollars to get rid of the problem, even if you report the rest. You can also prevent being plotted by these 2 gangsters in the future. Although we were unwilling to do so, we had no choice but to withdraw. We did not take a car, but lazily walked home step by step, discussing with each other what we would say to them when we met. Hello. Where are you going? One of his colleagues, Sun Jun, who worked in the customs field office, was greeting us. We are moving today. He was not in the mood to elaborate. I will come see you after we move. I'm on the night shift today. I have nothing to do at the moment, so I'll help you move. Since you're moving, why are you just still walking outside? There was nothing I could do, so I had to tell him the details. After hearing this, he couldn't help but said angrily, this is unreasonable. Are you really going to let them rip you off? To pay for the empty house for 3 months? You won't use it to buy Shaoxing wine. I can do something about this. He suddenly became happy. I met a dancer at XX Dance Hall. She is only 19 years old this year, with a tender face, and what does this have to do with the dancer? I interrupted him anxiously. Oh, I'm not talking about this dancer, because she is also familiar with XX's third concubine's brother. XX is a powerful old man in the public concession. What else dare those 2 gangsters do? Now let's go to the dancer's virginity together. How about going there once and asking her to invite the concubine and brother to come out and talk to the gangster? But it takes so many twists and turns. What if she or he is not at home? My husband hesitated, and it's already 5 o'clock. I added. Everyone was silent for a while. Suddenly, Sun Jun patted him on the shoulder and said with a smile, yes, yes. The dancer also told me that the concubine has a younger brother who works in the Hong Kong customs. He is about the same age as me, so I will pretend to be him, but you might show off your flaws. I was a little worried. It doesn't matter. Don't worry. He asked us to jump on the No. 5 public tram and return home. Once inside, he shouted from the stairs, "Please come up to the three brothers to speak." The gangster came up with a challenging look on his face. "Mr. XX asked me to come here. He said that we are all members of the same family. If you have any questions, please go to the Times house to talk it over," Sun Jun said in a serious tone. But I was pregnant with evil intentions. "Mr. Times." Mopi's attitude became much more modest. "I am the second brother of his third wife. I just came back from Hong Kong the day before yesterday. Today. Mr. We are all from the same family. I am afraid that I am new to Shanghai, and I am not very familiar with the brothers, so I immediately ran to my sisters to invite them. Unexpectedly, they were forging sparrows and had no time, so they asked me to invite the brothers. Let's go to him and talk." When the three people heard this, they immediately smiled and said that it was rare for my uncle to come here. They also apologized to us and said that they didn't know at first. So the man in the peaked cap went to call a delivery truck. While they were carrying our belongings down, they laughed and talked with Sun Jun about the three wives being too long and the other being short. Their attitude was very flattering. Sun Jun also acted like an uncle, saying that his sister often asked him to buy small handkerchiefs, and that his sister loved playing cards all day long. He even insisted on inviting the three of them to Times's house. "Let's come visit another day." When we meet Mr. and Mrs. after getting into the truck, my husband took out 3 banknotes to buy them cigarettes. They refused repeatedly and had no choice but to accept them gratefully. When the car turned the corner, we looked back and saw the second landlord burning white paper at the back door. Sun Jun was so angry that he wanted to jump down and scold her. I quickly stopped him and said, Forget it. I'll save it for next time. Stop."
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.